Knowledge is roughly useful information. It is information that's adapted to a purpose. It is good explanations and it is solutions to problems people had. Knowledge should not be expected to be perfect. A partial solution is still knowledge even if it contains some mistakes and can be improved on in the future. Knowledge is created by imaginative and critical thought. The key ingredients are both creativity and criticism. We need numerous ideas, including ones that aren't obvious, and we need error correction to get rid of flaws. With those two components, we can improve our knowledge and learn new things. It is also important to be sensitive to problems. Problems are opportunities to learn something new and to improve our lives. But some people are scared of problems or consider problems inevitable and permanent. Life isn't perfect, and who do you think you are trying to do better than thousands of smart people before you? Some problems are never going to go away, and you should just get accustomed to them. These people don't notice, keep track of, and make an effort to solve problems as well as they could with a better attitude. That means they solve fewer problems and correct fewer of the problem causing flaws in their ideas. Problems can be solved and knowledge can be created. What is there to stop us? There are the laws of physics. We can never make a perpetual motion machine, and there is our preference. If we don't want to solve a problem, we won't. And that's our knowledge. If we don't know enough about a problem, then we may have to learn more before we solve it. None of these obstacles should ever make us unhappy. It is possible to have a great life without violating the laws of physics. It is possible to have a productive, happy life without knowing everything. Just work on accessible problems and make progress. If we want to live in this way, we won't be upset when we don't solve some other irrelevant problem. Most people think that knowledge is justified true belief. This is an authoritarian conception of knowledge and a perfectionist conception. It insists that if an idea is only a partial solution or contains a mistake, then it's not a genuine knowledge. And it encourages appeals to authority which serve as justifications. What is universal knowledge? Universal knowledge is a new approach. To better formulate it, let me present the concept in a short report detailing the issues. The basic assumptions of universal knowledge: all is one, and so it should be referred to. Everything is possible in many different ways. Seemingly the same thing has quite a different mechanism of origin. A phenomenon takes place primarily at the level of energy, later materializes at the level that we perceive through our senses. The main objectives of universal knowledge: to raise awareness of the meaning of the existence of humans, to help people to understand that the most important thing is what happens at the energy level, that is knowledge, thought, because all the material passes. Based on the universal knowledge, man should be able to know his destiny and follow it. Some of the additional objectives of universal knowledge: to change people's attitudes to each other, to the surrounding world and the time given to them, help man to exist knowingly in the reality in which he found himself, to remind people that through conscious existence and behavior consistent with his destiny, man is able to cooperate with the Creator and improve himself. Universal knowledge is a completely new approach that can be defined as meta-science or knowledge over knowledge. This phenomenon does not imply any division and treats everything at the appropriate level in accordance with the principles of hierarchy of levels at which the reality has its own individuality. Its range is limited neither up nor down. The upper limit of the meta-science does not exist because, in connection with the formation of ever new realities takes place development of the universal knowledge itself. The lower limit lacks as well because the emergence of new realities entails deposition of the old ones on the lower and lower levels. This knowledge relates both to the realities of energy as well as those arising from the materialization. Slowing down the movement of energy in our reality leads to the formation of matter. Materialization is a process of development which can be either positive or negative depending on whether it is consistent with the intentions of the creator. In conclusion, we find that universal knowledge is constant, does not change, affects all levels and all realities, is limited neither in time nor in space. It exists regardless of whether the individual is aware of that fact or not. This knowledge answers all questions related to the evolution of a given level in the hierarchy of levels of reality. If there are any ambiguities for which there is no reply at certain levels, then based on the universal knowledge is logical. On the basis of it, all phenomena occurring in all realities as well as their different levels can be logically explained, pointing to their cause and effect. According to universal knowledge, everything is interlinked. Nothing happens by accident. According to universal knowledge, the language spoken by our reality belongs only to it. It is utilitarian, does not fit all realities, and so all the concepts that are useful to identify the phenomenon occurring in another reality should be defined once again. This knowledge as a smart energy at all costs is trying to disclose but has no experience in this reality. Being aware of the existence of universal knowledge, an individual begins to perceive the world. He learns by experience, which is the highest form of knowledge. He is experiencing and experimenting on himself and comes to certain conclusions. This knowledge, based on experience, is irrefutable because we learn looking into ourselves. Universal knowledge helps to know the form of existence in this reality. What in general is given life to us for? This question rises with many people. We know that the present life serves the next one, that one after death we believe it. More often, however, we doubt it because there are many questions that the current knowledge is not able to answer, and therefore man lives in constant insecurity. Existing on earth, man is sure of one thing: no material form of living on this planet will be spared death, and just this moment negates everything what comes next. Not knowing, that is, having no experience, belief in the continuity of existence, man lives, exists, functions without a specific path, not seeing the purpose of his vocation to life. Universal knowledge is a treasure that can answer all questions that concern man. Having access to it and understanding it, man does not live in a trap, does not act as a blind kitten which do not know where it is, what it does. Given that the current form of existence, that is, as in fact any other, was granted to us to develop our own abilities, achieve ever high levels of development, we arrive at the conclusion that any form of existence which is given to us, every reality in which we find ourselves, was set up so that we could develop, shape our own personality, and thus pass on ever higher levels of development. When you are reading something for the first time that it has that certain ring of truth to it, your thought says, "Oh, I already knew that." That is the thought and feeling of the universal knowledge that you already have within. Yet, within this knowledge, at its purest form, it steams from nowhere because this knowledge is the only true you. It is within the beingness that this pure, untouched knowledge arises in its clearest form. The facets of knowledge. There are three facets of knowledge: knowledge as participation, knowledge as content, knowledge as a relation. Knowledge as participation. Social basis of learning like cleaning the neighborhood, home visits to educate young mothers, visiting hospitals, and joining in adult literacy campaigns serve as sources of knowledge, and interaction with a cross section of people make a person socially conscious. Knowledge as content. It refers to what is taught in educational institutions as outlined by the curriculum, syllabus, textbooks or reference books, and the progress in learning is periodically assessed by oral, written or practical tests. Knowledge as a relation. Knowledge and learning are related. Knowledge acquisition helps in knowledge production, which is possible only by continuous learning. By relating what one learns now, what he has already learnt, his knowledge gets restructured and refined. Knowledge, that is already one has, and experience, that is what one presently attempts to learn, contribute to the selecting of what to learn, when to learn, how to learn, and in this way the interaction between knowledge and experience goes on, which leads to furtherance of knowledge. Facets of knowledge, sources. Among the sources of the different facets of knowledge, let us see the details of the four sources: local and universal. Expertise in local history, problems of people living in the locality, resources available for development, socio-economic data, and the like are well known to intelligent and long-term residents of particular areas. There are experts, armchair philosophers, and globe-trotting intellectuals, including who are well versed in international affairs but have no feel about ground realities. Studying social sciences helps to learn about history, culture, economic conditions, geography, and problems of local as well as international problems. Concrete and abstract. Knowledge about things that actually exist now or existed earlier and are factually found to be correct is concrete knowledge. They could be shown, manipulated, modified, and duplicated. They exist in some form and are accessible to one or more sense organs. Places, things, articles, weapons, vessels, and similar things have names and some descriptions. Even pictures could be used to represent them. In contrast to the above, in some of the ancient documents retrieved, its language, content, scripts, and symbols used may not be known to us, as they are to be understood only through reasoning and research. That is to say, we derive sense out of obtained objects by the application of thinking and reasoning. Such things are known as abstract things. Such things which derive meaning not through our sensory experiences but from thinking and reasoning are called abstract things. Both concrete and abstract things, though serve as sources of knowledge for us, to acquire knowledge through abstract sources is little bit difficult. It requires special training and previous experience. Practical and theoretical knowledge. One intuitive way to distinguish between practical and theoretical knowledge is to classify the objectives as what are known and what are inferred. For example, taking the shortest route from place A to place B or getting a property registered concern practical matters. There are theoretical propositions like total prohibition, removing social imbalances, eradicating corruption and black marketing, extending subsidies and freebies to the weaker section of the people, which are only at the conceptual stage. They can be discussed but not demonstrated before any audience. Contextual and textual. Context means circumstance in which something happens or in which something has to be considered, that is, according to content. Contextual knowledge is interpretation of information in the peculiar context or situation in which a particular thing took place. Texts provide a lot of information. Textbooks provide graded information in a language style for a particular group, taking into consideration the physical and mental abilities and psychological needs. Textbooks may not always provide new, interesting, and useful knowledge. Forms of knowledge. Depending upon the ways of acquiring, knowledge takes different forms. Knowledge acquired through sense perceptions are known as sensory knowledge. When sense perceptions are stored in mind as images and applied in thinking wherever needs arises, such kind of knowledge acquired is experiential knowledge. Knowledge acquired from things that could not be explained through direct relations but may be inferred through indirect relations is termed as demonstrative knowledge. When knowledge is acquired through the use of inductive and deductive reasoning, it is called logical knowledge. When one gets knowledge transcending conscious experiences and reasoning, it is called intuitive knowledge. Knowledge that is beyond human experiences and revealed by God or the Almighty to sages and saints or messiahs constitute revealed knowledge. Texts and documents stored in the digital form and is accessible to computers represent digital knowledge. Let us discuss on these 7 forms of knowledge briefly. Sensory knowledge. When we have direct contact with the environment, the various stimuli present in it cause appropriate sensations are transmitted to the brain and are interpreted with the help of already stored knowledge. This results in sensory perceptions and is recorded in the mind, which constitute sensory knowledge. Sensory knowledge need not always be true. Experiential knowledge. Sense perceptions are used then and there, but for long-term use, they are stored in the minds in the form of images. When these images are appropriately combined in a proper sequence and put into use, it results in thinking. Thoughts using imageries develops experiential knowledge. For recollecting one's experience, there need not be any immediate sensation. Mind uses the stored image of sense perceptions, that is experiential knowledge, to solve the problem it encounters. Experiential knowledge is superior to sensory knowledge as it operates mentally. Demonstrative knowledge. Demonstrative knowledge is said to be used when we perceive the agreement or disagreement between two ideas or events indirectly through a series of intermediate ideas. Logical knowledge. Logic is about the science of thinking or explaining the reasoning for some occurrence. Logical knowledge is one that is accepted as logical conclusion as it is based on sound reasoning. Logical reasoning is of 2 types, inductive reasoning and deductive reasoning. In inductive reasoning, particular instances are observed and the common elements, if any present in them, are found. In this way, new truths of knowledge are obtained. In deductive reasoning, a particular truth that exists already is applied to a new event presently observed to find the validity of the existing truth. In science, laws and principles are developed through inductive reasoning and they are verified by the deductive method. This kind of logical knowledge is highly valid and useful and is largely found in science. Intuitive knowledge. When the mind transcends the sensory perceptions and intellectual reasoning and gets deeply absorbed in the highest level of consciousness, enabling us to understand situations, people's feelings, or agreement or disagreement of 2 ideas, etc. Immediately, without the need for conscious reasoning or study, it is called intuition. People who can focus consciousness at a point, like in meditation, and also have rich and varied background experiences, get intuitive experiences. Though intuition yields perfect certainty, it is only rarely available to us. The claim, intuitive findings are always true, is not accepted by all. Revealed knowledge. Messages for the whole of mankind or for an individual have been recorded and cherished as they are believed to have come from some supernatural power like God. This divine knowledge cannot be subjected to scrutiny. Religious scriptures like Vedas, Quran, Bible, etc. claim such authority as they were directly received by chosen great men. These revelations are relevant to all people and places and at all times. They have to be studied, understood and explained, but should not be questioned or altered. Digital knowledge. In this modern era of knowledge of electronics and computer applications has become the basic requirement for all. The term digitalization is often used when diverse forms of information such as text, sound, images of voice are converted into a single binary code that could be recorded and preserved in computers. Digital information exists as one of 2 digits, either 0 or 1, arranged sequentially. Digital information could be converted back into their original form by using the equipment modem, modulation and demodulation attached to the computer. By converting the existing information in the diverse forms into the digital form, it is easier to preserve for long without much distortion and that too in a small space. It is also easier to access and share. For example, original historical document may only accessible to people who visit its physical location. But if the document content is digitized, it can be made available to people worldwide. There is a growing trend towards digitization of historically and culturally significant data. Acquiring the knowledge stored in the form of digital information and developing the skills required to access such information constitutes digital knowledge.